Cutler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one of the previous speakers spoke regarding the limitations on constitutional rights and specifically used the example of whether or not you can yell fire in a theater. I believe that's an excellent example because in that particular case, we punish the offender. We punish the individual who screams fire by having laws in place that discourage that conduct. And I would offer that we should attack the issue of gun violence in the same way. Those individuals who break the law using firearms should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Mr. Speaker, and while it's accurate that there are limitations on constitutional rights in some cases, we overwhelmingly seek to encourage individuals through punishment not to engage in that activity. We don't adversely impact the rights of every other individual in the room. Furthermore, I think that there's an important piece of this debate that has been missed. Up until this point, there's been failure to recognize the limitations that have been placed on municipalities by this General Assembly regarding the breadth of their authority. Furthermore, we're failing to recognize those instances where ordinances, such as are being argued for today, are in fact already declared unconstitutional. The gentleman from Armstrong County referenced the Heller case, which was a United States Supreme Court case. And I think it's important, again, to revisit the current status of the law. Mr. Speaker, this bill as proposed would amend the Uniform Firearms Act to require that the Pennsylvania State Police transmit the mental health data within 72 hours of receipt. I think that's an excellent improvement. Currently, the state police only may share. It's not a shall, it's a may, but it's not required. Until recently, this data wasn't even shared. In early 2013, at the encouragement of our colleague from Montgomery County and through his efforts, this information is now being uploaded. It's important that we codify this so that future administrations do not again neglect this important duty. Furthermore, the bill amends Section 6120 of the Uniform Firearms Act to provide a remedy if the party prevails in a civil action against a municipality that has unlawfully promulgated local firearms regulations. Mr. Speaker, right now, under existing law, these municipalities cannot promulgate these ordinances. They've been prohibited to do such since 1974. And this bill does not in any way modify the scope of preemption that already exists under existing law. Mr. Speaker, municipalities have limitations to their authority, and this is one of them. But this preemption is not self-enforcing. In fact, many of us have heard the statement, you can't fight City Hall because they have the mass resources of the taxpayers behind it. Mr. Speaker, in this case, citizens can already challenge unconstitutional ordinances based on their constitutionality if these ordinances are enforced at the local level. That remedy is also already available to each and every one of us as a citizen. But what this bill does change is it provides a remedy for the high costs involved in pursuing litigation. Those very same high costs that the opponents of the bill have been arguing will bankrupt their communities. Mr. Speaker, we as citizens must safeguard our constitutional rights, particularly against those municipalities which knowingly and purposefully violate the current statutory preemption. Mr. Speaker, this is not my own personal opinion. This is the opinion of our own Supreme Court. Quoting from the Ortiz case, Ortiz versus Commonwealth, they said in 1996, because the ownership of firearms is constitutionally protected, its regulation is a matter of statewide concern. The Constitution does not provide that the right to bear arms shall not be questioned in any part of the Commonwealth, except for Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, where it may be abridged at will, but that it shall not be questioned in any part of the Commonwealth. Thus, regulation of firearms is a matter of concern in all of Pennsylvania, not merely in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and the General Assembly not city councils, is the proper forum for the imposition of such regulations. Mr. Speaker, this is the forum where these issues should be decided. We are the ones who will vote on that, just as we have tonight. And if you look a little further back in the Marbury versus Madison, which is, for many of us who have went to law school, one of the first cases that we learn about, Justice Marshall said very clearly, the very essence of civil liberty certainly consists in the right of every individual to claim the protection of laws whenever he receives an injury. One of the first duties of government is to afford that protection. This bill will provide that. In Great Britain, the king himself is sued in the respectful form of a petition, and he never fails to comply with the judgment of his court. Justice Marshall later went on to explain, the government of the United States has been emphatically termed a government of laws and not of men. It will certainly cease to deserve this high appellation if the laws furnish no remedy for the violation of a vested legal right. This is precisely what this bill does. It empowers us as individuals to challenge those ordinances which are unconstitutional. And Mr. Speaker, for me, it highlights a more troubling trend, that in which public officials choose which laws they wish to enforce and not enforce. Mr. Speaker, lastly, and in closing, it has been raised that the issue of attorney's fees is inappropriate. But I think that the case law and existing laws that we already have on the books, as interpreted by the courts, clearly show that we as individuals have rights. It is not unheard of to offer attorney's fees in cases involving constitutional rights. We already do that with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we already do that with the Civil Rights Act, to empower those individuals to go find legal representation so that they can adequately defend their rights in court. For all of those reasons, I urge a concurrence vote on House Bill 80 and ask for the support of the underlying bill and the protections of our liberties. Thank you.